Hello, today we are discussing one of the most misunderstood topic in business leaderships. So I want to talk about artificial intelligence. I know lots of people are talking about that, but do they really understand what it's all about? But today is not another conversation about futuristic robots, data center, or whether AI will replace jobs. Instead, what we want to have as conversation today, it's far more practical questions. And the question is this: if AI is already inside your organization, who is actually managing this risk? So my guest today, it's Simon Bransfield-Garth, who is the CEO of Kitty AI and also Azure Technologies. So he is a leader who spent decades building technology across businesses, in the continent of Africa and also beyond, and helping organizations navigate major waves of innovation. So today, we'll explore why AI governance may become one of the most important boardroom issues of the decade, and why many organizations may already be exposed without them even knowing it. So that's the conversation I want to have today with you. So I'll be back in a few seconds and we can dive into that a little bit more. Hey everybody, so happy to talk to you again. So my name is Tony. I'm the founder and CEO of RIA. What we do is very simple. We raise awareness about renewable energy, sustainability, but also AI, right? So if you're interested to break, expand to the continent of Africa, we are your eco-bridge, and we can help you with three things: the visibility, the leads, and the deals. Or if you want to decarbonize, we again your eco-bridge, sustainable pathway, and we can help you with a few things like carbon footprint assessment, carbon reduction strategy, and much more. So reach out to us. We're more than happy to talk to you. But today, I want to take you to the question of AI. AI is on everybody's lips, right? But as I say, there is a very important question we need to be looking at, which is how you actually managing AI within your business. Nobody talks about it, but it's a very important question. And as I say, so I have a gentleman with me who is obviously an expert in setting up, building up technology company across the continent of Africa. So Simon, can you hear me?
I can, yes. Good to see you again, Tony.
Good to see you. Good to see you. So Simon, I've known you for many years. I think we bump across each
Mm.
other. So I think few conferences here and there. But it's a pleasure for me to be having the opportunity to talk to you. But just to give sort of a proper, I would say, justice to the immense career you've had so far. So I wonder maybe you could very briefly introduce yourself in your own words, before I dive into the few questions I have for you today.
Sure, yes, no, let's do that. So fundamentally, I'm a technologist. So I did my degree and PhD at Cambridge, and then I had a research fellowship, and the research fellowship was all about artificial intelligence in the early days of um, what we call neural networks. So AI that tries to mimic how the brain works, and I guess one of the misunderstood things about AI is it's been around since the 1950s, but it's actually come in sort of half a dozen completely different ways of doing things. So anyway, this was the late 1980s, um, and then I finished doing that, spun off a company which we sold, and then been running tech companies kind of ever since then. And then about 15 years ago, we set up Azure Technologies, which is delivering solar power in Africa. So this is off-grid solar power, so households that don't have grid. Um, and we have about 250,000 households, something like that, enabling people to have electricity in their homes. And then about 2 years ago, we set up Achille AI. And Achille is about how do we ride the AI wave. So, solar was about how do we ride the off-grid wave, if you like. Achille is about the AI one, and in particular, how do we make sure that AI works for Africa and fixes the issues that Africa wants it to fix? Because the narrative of AI in California is very different to the narrative of AI in Africa, and I suspect that's something we'll chat about a little bit as we go along today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've known you from the time of Azuri, right? Where obviously, as you say, that you pioneer the pay-as-you-go solar across African market. So looking back at this day, so what did that experience teach you about how transformative technology will spread through technology and through organization and society and societies?
Yeah, I mean, it was very interesting. So, the pay-go industry sort of grew up in a number of waves. So there was kind of a very early wave, um, which was sort of the pioneers, and we were part of that. Then there was the kind of the what I call the dot-com wave, um, where there was investment, particularly from the US, which thought that this was going to be a kind of a massive winner-take-all type market, and probably not the smartest money was thrown at the problem. Um, and then there was kind of the stabilization wave, which occurred after COVID, um, where uh, people realized that this was it was a great industry and it was having a great impact, but it wasn't it wasn't the next internet, if you like, in terms of returns, um, and so it sort of developed in that way. Um, but it was also about how do we make products that really work for our customers, and how do we get those products to those customers. And a lot of innovation has gone on around that, in terms of products, in terms of financing, and so on. So, yeah, I mean, you don't have an off-grid market elsewhere in the world, really, in the way that exists in Africa, um, and it's really enabled millions of people to have access to basic electricity. It's not like the grid, but it's a whole lot better than kerosene lamps or whatever else it was that people had beforehand. So people can have smartphones in their houses, they can watch TV, that sort of thing. Um, and that's a really significant step up. So yeah, I think the industry as a whole can be very proud of itself in terms of what it's achieved.
Yeah, and as you just mentioned, I could see that you spend a lot of time in the energy sector.
Mm.
Absolutely. But what actually convinced you that AI governance, not just AI development, was actually a problem worth solving next?
Yeah, so we've been working in AI for the last couple of years, and one of the key things about AI that it frankly is no different now than it was in the 1980s is, um, there's a lot more to AI than just the technology. There's an
Right.
awful lot about how you use it, where you go with it, and so on. Um, and it's very true in the African context. So there are two things that I see in the narrative. So there's a narrative which I call the Californian narrative of AI, um, and there are two things that they hold dear, which I believe are wrong. Um, so the first one is there is a belief that AI is winner take all, and the biggest company will completely clean up. And that is only true if you believe that AI is just going to continue to grow and grow and grow in terms of capability, and that people are going to need that additional capability. But what we really find is that for the vast majority of applications, the AI that you need is nowhere near the capability of the frontier models. The AI of 2 years ago will do the job just fine. If you want a recipe for chocolate brownies, it could do that 2 years ago, right? If you want it to tell you to write you a marathon training plan, it would do that 2 years ago. If you want to make the next molecule to avoid, Ebola, sure, you need a frontier model, but there's a relatively small number of people who are doing that. So for Africa, the problems in the market in Africa, many of them are relatively straightforward, if you like. So they're what I call the glue in the economy. So, an example of that is if I go to open a bank account, it still takes me 6 weeks to open a bank account in Kenya, right? It really shouldn't. I should be able to open it same day, right? When I want to get a loan, it takes weeks to get that done. you should be able to get that done each day. You want to get a passport, you want to visit hospital, you want to do all these things. There's sort of organizational glue, if you like, in those processes. And AI can play a tremendous role in taking that glue out of those processes and enabling people to really focus on the things that they're doing. So that's the first sort of difference between Africa and sort of the US, if you like, in terms of AI. The second difference is that the narrative and the return on investment narrative in the US is all about taking $200,000 analysts, bank workers, whatever it may be, and replacing them with an AI. And again, that narrative simply doesn't work in the vast majority of Africa. Labor replacement is not the way you make money with AI in Africa. The way you make money with AI in Africa is by offering new services, new ways of working, and you make things cheaper. So, I go to my bank account in Kenya, and every time I pay money, the bank takes a fee for taking for the fact that I've gone and paid money, right?
Right.
I've never paid a bank fee in the UK for 25 years, right? So there's all manner of small but distinctly non-trivial costs which occur in the economy, which are a function of how much it costs to actually deliver those services. And at one level, you can say, well, yes, the banks are making money. That's great. But the problem is that the people who are paying for it is individual citizens, right? And so by getting rid of this glue, what we do is make the economy work more smoothly, more efficiently. And so everybody benefits because you're not spending money on, frankly, useless stuff.
Mm.
So they're the two big differences between the way AI is seen in, by the sort of the AI bros, if you like, and the reality on the ground in Africa.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what we're seeing is the adoption of AI in Africa is slower than you would expect. And one of the reasons for that is because people are concerned about the adoption of AI. And so we're focusing on two things. We're focusing on providing AI solutions that really deliver answers to problems, but also making sure that people do it in a responsible way so that they're not putting their businesses at risk by adopting AI. So that's really the sort of direction of travel for where we're going.
Yeah. I think thank you for saying that. As you talked about adoption here, it's quite interesting. And I know you and I had conversation before where you were telling me that you've had conversation with many CEO who actually would claim that's actually in the country of Africa, corporate Africa, who say that they haven't yet adopted AI.
Mhm.
But when you discuss with them, they actually found out that AI is already operating through the organization.
Yeah.
And it's actually quite interesting. So I wanted to ask you a question. So what are you seeing inside these companies today? So where is AI then hiding?
So it's really in two places. So the first one is it's hiding in plain sight. So every application that your business has, almost certainly the manufacturer of that software has added AI as an upgrade at some point in the last couple of years. So, you're using HubSpot for your customer inquiries, for example. So HubSpot has got AI in it. So where's your data going? Where's it sitting? Which continent is your data going? Is it being used to train a model? Have you sat down and thought that through? In your business, there are going to be 20 or 30 of these applications, and you reviewed the contract when you actually bought the application in the first place, but you certainly didn't bother to review the contract when they went and did this software upgrade that they normally go and do. The second one is AI finds its way in just on people's laptops. So there was some data last year which said that Kenya has the highest consumer adoption of AI of any country in the world. So of internet users in Kenya, something like 42.5% used ChatGPT a year ago, right? So guess what's happening? People are going to work and they're using ChatGPT to write that report, to put that survey, to do that marketing material, to do this, to do that. And they're very often doing it just with a free version of ChatGPT. And with the rules of free version of ChatGPT, they can do what they like with your data. They can use it for training, they can store it, they can do what they want with it. And so there's massive leakage of potentially confidential information, which is just going out entirely innocently because employees are using AI without really understanding the implications. So what's really key is businesses need to take ownership of AI in their organizations. They may not have explicitly rolled out AI, but there is what we call shadow AI, this implicit AI inside the business. And you've got to have an AI usage policy. You've got to have an AI incident policy. You've got to create a risk register. You've got to have an oversight committee that approves the applications that have got AI inside them. You've got to have some employee training. It's all basic stuff, but you'd be amazed how many companies, big and small, really don't have anything yet today to go and do that.
I think it's great because you've used that term, shadow AI, and I think that's probably the second or third time hearing it from you, right? And in fact, you're the only one actually mentioning that. I've not heard anybody else talking about that, but it displayed quite well what you were describing there. But if I were to ask you, so what exactly is shadow AI? And the reason I'm saying that, I'm sure there's some CEOs or directors listening to our conversations.
Mhm.
So they be a little bit surprised by these terms, right? When they say, okay, why is shadow AI, Simon? And why should board and executive be really paying attention to that? Is it really that serious?
Yeah, it is. So shadow AI is the AI you don't know about and you don't manage, right? And so there are really two big issues, which are board level issues around AI. The first one is that AI hallucinates, and so uh, it's a feature. It's not a bug. It's just the way that it works. And what that means is that if you go and ask AI to go do something for you and you include that in a report without checking it, it may be wrong, right? And each time you go and run the AI, you may get a different answer. So, a classic example I sometimes mention is people will use Microsoft Copilot and they'll have that rolled out in their organization. And Microsoft Copilot has very good policies about data retention and protection and all that sort of stuff. But they have a feature which is called @Copilot, which is a function that goes inside Microsoft Excel. And so you can say in Microsoft Excel, @Copilot, look at this list of categories and identify the top 10, and then assign spend last year to those top 10 categories, for example, right? So you put that into your Microsoft Excel spreadsheet and you send it to your CFO, and your CFO runs that spreadsheet. Trouble is, when the CFO runs the spreadsheet, the Excel comes out with a different list of categories.
Mm.
And so now the spreadsheet is giving you different, slightly random answers depending on who it is who happens to go and open it, right? So you had an answer, you sent it to your CFO turns it into a PowerPoint slide, that gets put in front of the board, and the board makes an investment decision based on data which was not the data that you sent to the CFO. That's one example. The other example is data loss and data privacy. So, there are very strong laws in Kenya. There's the 2019 Data Act in Kenya, which is broadly based on GDPR. And it makes requirements about what you do with private information. It makes requirements about where data goes and so on. So I was talking to a media company a while ago, and the person I was talking to was complaining that the AI companies were taking their content and offering it for free, the content that they and charge for, historical stuff and so on. And what do they use when they're making making their content for the newspaper? They use ChatGPT. Okay, fine. So your journalists are actually giving the content to the AI companies, and now you're complaining that the AI companies have got your content, right? So, again, it's not malicious. It's not. There's nothing wrong about it in that sense. companies are sleepwalking into doing things with AI that they really shouldn't. And it's actually not that difficult to fix. But you have to be able to explain to people what the issues are, and you have to train them on what those issues are. If an employee doesn't know that the free version of ChatGPT is basically going to leak private information, you can't really blame them if they use it and they leak private information. So critical for the board, because there's compliance risk, there's all manner of different risks around this, is that they put something in place. And the most important thing to remember, if you're a board member, is you're not going to be measured on the regulation that's around today. You're going to be measured on the regulation that will be around in 5 years' time. So you actually have to second guess what that regulation is going to look like in 5 years' time and make sure what you're doing today is compliant with that regulation.
Very interesting. And I like that example of the media company who were actually complaining about the fact that they thought that there was somebody spying on the data, whereas actually they were just simply just offering that for free to ChatGPT without realizing it. That's quite interesting telling. So if I'm a CEO listening today then, and realizing that, oh, okay, that means that as we're talking, AI is already operating inside my organization. So what should be the first step that you would advise I should do?
Yeah. So there's kind of a process that you go through. So and it's not dissimilar to what you would have done for cybersecurity or for other sort of corporate governance type things. So if you go to the Akili AI website, so Akili, AKILI-AI.com, you can take a thing called Snapshot. And Snapshot is a free expert survey to help you discover how ready you are for AI, how protected you are around AI. And then we have two tools which you can use. One is called Assured, which builds you an entire AI governance framework for you. And the other one is Passport, which is a series of training modules for your staff, which enables those staff to be able to get up to speed on what AI is. So again, it's not complicated, but it's something that you need to do. And most businesses don't want to hire an AI risk officer or whatever to go do this. It's generally not advised to have your head of IT do this because it's not really an IT problem, right? The issue around AI in HR, for example, is that potentially you're showing bias in the AI that you're using to assess the CVs that people send when they come in with job applications. The AI risk in legal is that it will hallucinate clauses inside a contract. The AI risk in sales is different. So, the AI risk is not a technology risk; it's a business risk, and it has to be owned by the individual business owners. And so, what we do is we help you bring together that process, and then part of that is you'll build a cross-functional AI governance committee, which will have oversight of what's going on in AI in your organization. But we manage all of that for you. So we'll tell you what the agenda is. We'll tell you what policies need to be updated when they need to be updated. We'll manage updates to the regulations they come along. We'll manage changes to the training and so on. So it's really a sort of a turnkey. How do I protect my business? So I get value from AI, but don't have the risk of AI, and that's really what we're trying to achieve.
Excellent. I think that's interesting here. And as you were talking, so I was actually showing a picture. I think that's your website, if I'm correct here. So Akili AI, and what you're saying here, people can come simply in here, and take the test, and then it will take them to this page, if I'm correct, and then they can start their free assessment.
Yeah, and go do it if you like.
Yeah, so I think we're probably going to take us some minute to complete that.
No, I won't do the whole thing, but just click on it once just to show them how it goes.
Okay, let me just click on that. That's fine. So and it opens up. So okay.
I'll bring you, there you are. And so it tells you about your organization, asks you about how you use AI, what processes you have in place, all that good stuff.
Okay.
And then it gives you a nice report that tells you completely for free, completely
Okay.
anonymous, that tells you where you are in your AI journey.
Okay. Okay. Oh, that's great. I think, and when once you go through that, does it generate a report for you that you can get
Yes.
to the end?
Yes. Yeah. So you get a nice PDF report, 2-page report. It breaks down your answers into 5 different categories, and then it says where you are against benchmark for your peers in the market, and it suggests the areas that you need to focus on as your priority areas to go do things.
Okay. And is it actually for all type of industries or only for certain industry? What would you say?
No, it works for any business, large or
Okay.
small, and it adjusts to the type of size of business that you are. So anybody can do it, and it tells you, how your AI, how ready you are for AI inside your organization.
Okay, that's actually pretty interesting. And how long would it take roughly to take this assessment online, would you say?
5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Okay,
I mean,
excellent.
it's quick. It's the sort of thing you do while the adverts are on.
That's very good. And you mentioned one of the thing very interesting. You say that because we know that one of the challenge with AI governance, it's the fact that organization would think that they need a very large compliance function to manage.
Mhm. Mhm.
So how would you say Akili, and I think it's Akila Short, which is
Mm.
the service they provide, how does this simplify governance in a much more practical way?
Yeah. So, if you're a big bank, then you're going to need a large governance function. You're going to have to do that, and there's no getting away from that. If you're a 15-person legal practice, you don't need anything like that. So what we do is 2 things. We provide you with all of the template documents that you need. So we provide you with a governance and ethics policy. We provide you with a framework risk register, incident policy, all of that sort of stuff. And we enable you to tailor that to your appropriate organization. So if you're a big bank, you will have a cross-functional AI oversight committee. It will meet monthly. It will have formal minutes, formal agendas, all the rest of it.
Yeah.
If you're a 15-person organization, you probably have a quarterly 1-hour AI governance meeting with your senior management team, where you look at whether there are any AI issues that have come along. You look at, are there any new AI applications we're deploying? Is there anything new in the market we need to be aware of? And that's it. So it's anywhere between 1 hour a quarter and a full-blown, process, depending on the size and the nature of your organization.
Excellent. And I have a question because obviously clearly Akili AI is here to support corporate Africa to
Mm,
better manage
mm,
AI.
mm.
So would you say that the continent it's moving too slowly on AI or maybe too quickly without the necessary governance? Where are we here?
So my personal view is the continent is moving far too slowly. I think that there's 2 things that need to happen to make AI work. You have to have AI innovation in small companies, and I think that's happening. I think there are companies doing that. But in order to get it to scale, that AI innovation has to be adopted by big companies. And the big companies are being slow at adopting AI innovation. You look at the level of AI innovation that's occurring in the banking sector, for example, in Europe or in Asia or in the US. It's just not happening at that rate in Africa. And Kenya is one of the leading markets. But today it's being adopted more rapidly in Nigeria than it is in Kenya. But even still, it's being adopted relatively slowly. So my view is that AI has upsides and downsides, right? We have to accept that. The downsides of AI are coming whether you like it or not, right? There's no holding that particular tide back, right? So the only counter to that is to embrace the upsides so you get the benefit to offset the downsides. And the risk right at the moment is that there are companies in Africa which are not embracing the upside. And what will happen is that value will just go elsewhere, go outside Africa. So there's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't have native Kenyan, Nigerian, whatever companies selling world-class AI solutions for domestic markets, for African markets, and even for international markets. The great thing about AI is that in order to do it, you basically need a few laptops and an internet connection. You don't need huge capital investment. You don't need to build factories. You don't need to do any of that stuff. So it means that actually there's a real opportunity for the the knowledgeable sector of African industry to really excel in this space. But it's not going to excel unless it's got a way to be able to take the innovation, drive it into the market, and make money out of it. And that's really where the gap is today. So, when we do an AI solution, we say it takes 3 months to do the solution and you should get payback inside 7 months, right?
Hmm.
That is fantastically fast against any kind of software development that you would normally see, right? And you shouldn't really be thinking about what is my AI strategy. You should be thinking about what is my business strategy that I can help fix with AI. So this is not about having AI for AI's sake. It's about what are the fundamental business problems that I've got and which of those can I use AI to go and address. And that's happening more slowly in Africa than is happening elsewhere. And it means that the gap between the capability level in Africa and the capability level everywhere else is expanding. And there's really no reason for it. The skills are there, the people are there, the talent is there in the small companies, but it's not being amplified through the large organizations to really reach the market in the way that it might.
Excellent. So I have two couple of questions for you because I think we coming towards the end of our conversation here. So the first one is there is one concern which is regularly raised, right? Saying that Africa once again risks becoming merely just a consumer of AI created elsewhere. And you were talking about that when you were saying where's your data going, who's controlling that. And I want to ask you a question. What would it take for the country of Africa to become a meaningful creator of AI solutions as well, as opposed to just consuming what other people have built?
Exactly. So I think here it's really important to work out which battles you want to go fight, right? There is no point, in my view, in Africa or any country in Africa trying to compete in creating the foundation models, the basic AI models. And no point in trying to be another Google or another, Baidu or whatever. The investment in Africa this year will be 10 times Kenya's GDP. In AI this year, rather, 10 times Kenya's GDP. Makes no sense whatsoever. But actually think of the internet. Africa didn't need to own the fiber optic cables in order to be able to take advantage of the internet. The internet was about what you do with the technology, not the technology itself. And there really are no barriers to companies in Africa using AI in healthcare, in education, in real estate, in banking, in transport, in government. All of those places you can roll out AI solutions. So it's that next layer where companies in Africa can have a real opportunity. It requires innovation, doesn't require a huge amount of capital. But if companies don't seize that opportunity, other companies in the West will just export stuff they've already done. And eventually people just become takers of that technology. So there's a relatively short window where companies can develop and adopt AI and become exporters of AI technology rather than just takers of other people's products.
Okay, that's very interesting. So I have one last question for you, Simon. I think it's been a very insightful conversation. And you and I obviously have had conversation about that before. And I guess that's the reason we wanted you to come on the show today. And really thank you for that. So the last question I have, which is a little bit different. So I wanted to be talking to every CEO, the board members and business leaders in Africa, right? And I'd like you to tell them, what is the one thing you like them to remember from this conversation. So how are we going to do it? I want to talk directly to them. So I'm just going to go on backstage. So I'm going to leave you the floor all for yourself. And then, that's the question. Very simple. So essentially, you're talking to CEOs, board members, business leaders. It is one thing from these conversations that you want them to remember. So what would that message be? So let me just go on backstage and give you the floor for you to properly expose that.
Yeah. So the core message from today, I think, is if you think you don't have AI in your business, you do. And as a board, that is something that you need to manage. AI can be used as a tremendous opportunity, but there are also certain risks associated with it you need to manage. So there are two key things you need to do as a first step. One is to work out what your AI readiness is, and the Achille AI snapshot is a very simple, free way of going and doing that. And the second one is to create an AI opportunity matrix where you look at where you have business problems and where the AI could solve those problems. And then, purely from a hard-nosed business point of view, figure out the return on investment of deploying that AI and build yourself an AI strategy bottom up that gives you the advantages of adopting AI without the risks that would be there if you didn't manage that AI at the same time.
Excellent. That was actually straightforward, direct. So Simon, it was a pleasure for me having you today. So on our podcast and just explain to people what is about this AI governance, that actually the new battle that you're fighting for us so on the continent. So I'm sure there is a lot more that you could tell to people about that. But thank you very much for taking the time to stopping by and talking to us about it. And I'm sure we'll have plenty of chances to have further discussions. So thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Tony, it's a real pleasure. Thank you very much for the conversation.
Excellent, excellent. So we have heard about Simon, right? So thank you for such a practical, but I would say as well a timely conversation. And as far as I'm concerned, one of the strongest messages from today is that you know AI is no longer a future issue. It's already there. It's a present reality. I think we can all see that and sense it. And the question here facing leaders is not whether AI will enter the organization or not. In many cases, it already has, just as Simon explained. So the organization that succeed won't be those that would ban AI. It's practically impossible to do so. I think Simon has mentioned that many times. So pretty much all the software that you're using now have an AI feature, a component of AI. Yeah. So companies that are looking at banning I think they will struggle to do so. But the one that blindly embrace it, right, also may have a challenge. So the one that will succeed, this company, it will be the one that actually understand it, govern it, train their people and use it responsibly. And that is the key message that I personally can get from the conversation that we have today. So thank you very much for joining us. And as usual, we'll bring leaders from the industry that come and educate you on what are the key topics, the key areas that you need to look at to keep on growing your business and keep on growing Africa economy. So thank you very much for today, and we will see you shortly. Take care. Bye bye.